Scorpio, I know you can feel it. Even before you continue listening, something inside you has already recognized the truth behind these words. Someone is going to leave your life, and it won't be an accident, a coincidence, or bad luck. It will be exactly as it was meant to be, as it was always planned, as your deepest soul knew it would happen. The question gnawing at you inside isn't if it will happen, it's when. And most importantly, why? You've always felt this uncanny ability to perceive what others can't, to sense the energy of situations before they even fully manifest. And now, at this very moment, as your hands hold this device and your eyes scan these lines, your internal warning system is firing because you recognize it. You recognize the feeling of being on the verge of discovering something you've suspected but never had the courage to fully admit. There's someone in your life right now, you know who it is, who carries a different energy around you lately, a subtle distance you try to ignore, conversations that no longer flow as they used to, eyes that look away when they once sought you, silences where there used to be connection. You've been pretending not to notice because the truth hurts too much to face head-on, but your Scorpio nature can't pretend forever. It can't live on the surface when there's an undercurrent pulling you deeper into reality. The person leaving your life isn't doing so by accident. They're not leaving because they stopped loving you, because they lost interest, or because something went wrong between you. They're leaving because they fulfilled their role in your evolution. And now it's time for them to follow their own path, while you discover who you truly are, without their presence defining part of your identity. Does that scare you? The idea of discovering pieces of yourself that only exist when you're alone with your own intensity? Scorpio, you've always been the sign that sees through masks. That senses when people are being fake, when situations are deteriorating beneath the seemingly calm surface, when something is about to end, even when everyone around you pretends everything is fine. And now, this ability of yours is being tested in a very personal way, very intimate. Because, for the first time, you're being called to use this perception not to protect others, but to accept a truth about your own life that you'd rather not be real. The person who's pulling away from you has been feeling something they can't fully explain. An inexplicable need to create space, to seek something different, to follow a direction that naturally leads them away from you. And this has nothing to do with your or their faults. It has to do with the fact that you've reached the end of a cycle that was intense, transformative, necessary for both of you, but which now needs to end so that new cycles can begin. You've always known that your relationships aren't superficial, that when you connect with someone, it's for real, to transform and be transformed, to delve into layers of existence most people don't even know exist. And this intensity, this depth you bring to human connections has always carried a price. When these relationships end, the end is also intense. It's also profound. It also shakes internal structures you didn't even know had been built around that person. But here's what you need to understand. This departure isn't happening to punish you. It's not happening because you weren't good enough or because you did something wrong. It's happening because you've grown. Because you've absorbed everything you had to absorb from this specific connection. Because you've developed aspects of yourself that could only be developed through this person's presence in your life. And now it's time for you to apply these learnings independently, without the support or reference that this person represented. For Scorpios born between October 23rd and November 1st, the person leaving is someone who taught you about vulnerability and trust. Now you need to learn to trust yourself as deeply as you trusted them. For those born between November 2nd and 12th, the departure is related to someone who represented emotional security. It's time to find that security within yourself. And for Scorpios born between November 13th and 22nd, the person leaving is someone who challenged you to be better. Now you need to become your own challenger, your own motivator for growth. The pain you're feeling, or will feel when this exit becomes a reality, is real. It's valid. It's a necessary part of the process because you, more than any other sign, understand that true transformation always involves a kind of death. The death of who you were before. The death of patterns that no longer serve you. The death of versions of yourself that were necessary at a certain point, but now need to be left behind so that more evolved versions can be born. Are you afraid of being alone with your own intensity? Of discovering that without this person to channel your emotional depth, you'll have to learn new ways of expressing yourself, relating, and existing in the world? This fear is understandable, but it's also unfounded, because the truth is, you've never been more prepared to be alone with yourself than you are now. All this time of intense connection with this person has prepared you precisely for this moment. For this discovery of who you are when you no longer need anyone to validate or mirror your depth. This person's departure from your life will reveal layers of yourself that were dormant, talents you didn't know you had, inner strengths that never needed to be activated before because you always had this person as a reference or support. It's as if you've been living with an emotional crutch, not because you were weak, but because it was convenient, comfortable, familiar. Now that the crutch is being removed, you'll discover that you've always had the strength to walk alone. You've always had your own balance. You've always had the ability to be complete without needing completion from outside. Scorpio, one of your greatest strengths is the ability to see through appearances and see hidden truths. But sometimes this ability becomes a trap when you use it only to analyze others rather than to examine the patterns in your own life. The person leaving your life represents the end of a pattern where you invested heavily in specific connections, expecting them to last forever, resisting the natural idea that all things have cycles, including relationships. The truth you haven't yet fully accepted is that your ability to connect deeply with others wasn't designed to keep you stuck in specific connections forever. It was designed to allow you to fully immerse yourself in each relational experience, extract all the learnings and transformations possible, and then have the courage to let go when the connection has served its purpose. You've resisted this cyclical nature of relationships because you've confused intensity with permanence, but true Scorpio mastery lies in knowing when to dig deep and when to let go. The person leaving your life has served as a mirror for aspects of yourself that you needed to see, understand, and integrate. Through them, you discovered facets of your personality you hadn't known. You developed emotional skills you didn't have before. You expanded your ability to feel, to connect, to be vulnerable. But mirrors have a specific function to show us our own image. Once you've seen and recognized what you needed to see, the mirror is no longer necessary. You can carry this internal image of yourself without needing an external reflection. In the coming days or weeks, you'll begin to notice clearer signs of this impending departure. Conversations that no longer happen, plans that aren't made, a different energy when you're in the same room, and your natural tendency will be to try to reverse this situation. Try to rekindle the connection, recreate intimacy, force a return to what you had before. But here's what I need you to understand. This attempt to hold on to what's being released doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. Fear of discovering who you are without this person. Fear of facing your own immensity without someone to share its weight. But what if I told you that letting go of this person won't diminish you? That it will, in fact, expand you in ways you can't even imagine right now? When you stop channeling all your emotional intensity through one specific person, that intensity spreads to every area of your life. Your creative endeavors become deeper. Your other relationships become more authentic. Your connection to yourself strengthens exponentially. You become a source of intensity and transformation, rather than someone who relies on an external source for fulfillment. The person leaving your life is probably feeling the same need to discover who they are without you. And this isn't a judgment on what you've built together. It's an acknowledgement that you've grown through this connection to the point where you need separate spaces to continue growing. It's like two plants that started out close together and benefited from their proximity, but now need their own territories for their roots to fully expand. During your life, Scorpio, you will experience several of these significant departures. People who come into your life, transform you profoundly, and then go their own way. And each of these departures will teach you something different about detachment, about love without possession, about the art of connecting intensely without losing yourself in the process. This isn't the first time this has happened to you, and it probably won't be the last. But each time you go through this experience, you become wiser about the true nature of human connection. What many people don't understand about you is that your intensity doesn't come from neediness or dependence. It comes from a natural ability to perceive and experience the deeper layers of existence. You don't connect superficially because you can't. It's as if you were born with an extra sensitivity to the undercurrents of life. And this sensitivity is a gift, not a weakness. But like every gift, it needs to be used wisely. And part of that wisdom is knowing when a connection has served its purpose and it's time to release it with gratitude rather than hold on to it with despair. This person's departure from your life will open space for new and different connections. People who resonate with who you've become through all your previous relational experiences. People who can meet you at the depth where you naturally operate, without forcing yourself to be more superficial or less intense than you truly are. But for these new connections to emerge, you need to create energetic space. And that means letting go of what no longer serves your current growth. Scorpio, I know part of you already knows everything I'm telling you. Your intuition has always been your most reliable compass, and it's probably already warned you about this upcoming exit. But sometimes intellectual knowledge and emotional acceptance are two completely different things. You may know the person needs to leave your life and still feel resistance, sadness, fear of what comes next. These feelings are valid. Honor them, feel them fully, but don't let them stop you from embracing the transformation this departure offers. One of the most powerful things that will happen after this person leaves your life is that you'll rediscover aspects of yourself that may have been forgotten during the time you were together. Hobbies you abandoned, dreams you postponed, parts of your personality you softened to maintain harmony in the relationship. When you no longer have to consider another person's tastes, needs, and limitations in every decision you make, you rediscover a freedom of being that you may have forgotten existed. The person leaving your life loves you, and that's exactly why they're leaving. Because they realize you've reached a point where staying together would limit your growth rather than foster it. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away. Allowing the person you love to explore aspects of themselves that can only develop in your absence, and trusting that if you're meant to reunite in the future, it will happen when you've both grown enough to create an even deeper, more authentic connection. This outing will also teach you the difference between love and attachment. True love wants the best for the person, even if that means absence. Attachment wants to keep the person close, even if it limits the growth of both. And you, as an evolved Scorpio, are being called to choose love over attachment, to let this person go their way, even if it causes temporary pain. Because deep down, you know that holding on to someone who needs to go is a form of cruelty disguised as love. In the coming months after this departure, you will go through several stages of processing. First, there may be denial, the attempt to minimize the importance of the departure, or convince yourself that it is only temporary. Then anger may set in, directed at the person leaving, at yourself, or at the circumstances that led to this situation. Next, bargaining may arise, attempts to negotiate, to find compromises that allow the person to stay. Eventually, you may experience periods of deep sadness over the loss of what you had together. But after all these phases, acceptance will arrive. And with acceptance, something extraordinary will happen. You'll realize you haven't lost anything essential. That everything that was truly yours, Your learnings, your transformations, your expanded capacity to love and connect remains intact within you. The person took with them only your physical and energetic presence, but they left behind all the ways in which you grew because of the connection you shared. Scorpio, a revelation that may come as a surprise is that this departure will free not only you, but also the person leaving. You may have reached a point where the relationship has become more about maintaining what already exists than about exploring new possibilities for growth together. And when relationships enter this mode of maintenance rather than expansion, they begin to become limiting for both parties involved. The departure that's happening is an unconscious recognition that you need freedom to continue evolving. Observe your own emotional reactions without judgment. If you feel tempted to create drama, conflict, or intense situations to force the person to stay, recognize this as an old pattern reacting to fear of loss. Instead of following these impulses, practice conscious detachment. Let the person follow their natural path without creating obstacles or additional pressure. This doesn't mean being indifferent. It means being mature enough not to turn a natural transition into unnecessary trauma. The deeper truth about this situation is that you were placed in each other's lives for a specific reason, and that reason was fulfilled. You served each other as catalysts for growth, as mirrors for aspects that needed to be seen and integrated, as companions in transformations that could not have happened in isolation. And now the time has come to honor this mutual service by allowing each of you to pursue your individual evolution. The person leaving your life will always occupy a special place in your personal history. They were part of your development as a human being, helped shape aspects of your personality, and participated in moments that became important memories. None of this is lost when they leave your present life. In fact, it's precisely because these contributions were so significant that they no longer need to be sustained through the person's continued presence. They have become a permanent part of who you are. Scorpio, I want you to consider a perspective that could completely change how you see this situation. What if this departure isn't a loss, but a graduation? What if you've absorbed everything you needed to from this particular connection, and now you're being promoted to a level of existence where you can apply those learnings independently? What if this person is leaving, not because you failed together, but because you've succeeded so much that you no longer need each other in the same way? In the days following this person's final departure, you may be surprised by your own ability to adapt to the new reality. Scorpio has a natural ability to be reborn, to reinvent themselves after periods of loss or transformation. And this ability will manifest powerfully now. You will discover new ways to fill the time you previously spent with this person. You will develop aspects of yourself that were previously forgotten. You will create routines and habits that reflect who you are becoming, rather than who you were when you were deeply connected to this specific person. One of the most surprising discoveries you can make is that your capacity for solitude is far greater than you imagined. You may have developed a subtle dependence on this person's presence to feel complete or balanced, but when they leave, you'll discover that you've always had sufficient internal resources to remain stable and satisfied. You'll rediscover the pleasure of your own company, your own mind, your own internal processes without having to share or explain them to anyone. The intensity you've always channeled through this specific person will find new channels of expression. Perhaps you'll dedicate yourself more deeply to creative work. Perhaps you'll develop more authentic connections with others that were previously on the back burner. Perhaps you'll delve into studies, spiritual practices, or personal projects that were always put off because your energy was so invested in this particular relationship. Your emotional depth doesn't diminish when a specific person leaves your life. It simply redistributes itself in ways that can be even more enriching. Scorpio, I want to end with a truth your heart already knows, even if your mind is still resisting it. This person will leave your life at the exact moment it needs to happen. Not before, not after. Exactly when you're both ready for this next level of individual growth. And when that happens, instead of seeing it as an end, try to see it as a beginning. The beginning of a phase of your life where you will discover aspects of yourself that can only emerge when you are no longer defined by another specific person. Leaving isn't punishment, it's liberation. It's not abandonment. It's confidence in your ability to continue evolving without emotional crutches. It's not proof that you weren't enough. It's proof that you've grown so much that you need a bigger space to continue expanding. And in the end, when you look back, you'll realize that this departure was one of the most important gifts life has given you, because it forced you to discover the immensity of your own nature when it no longer needs to be filtered through any external connection. If this content resonated with you deeply, it's because you recognize the truth in these words. Your Scorpio intuition has already picked up on the signs of this approaching departure. Share in the comments if you've been feeling this energetic shift with someone specific, this sense that an important connection is coming to a natural end. Others of your sign may be going through similar experiences and benefit from knowing they're not alone in this process. Subscribe to the channel, because this person's departure from your life is just the beginning of a phase of profound personal rediscovery. You'll need guidance on how to navigate this transitional period, how to honor what was without clinging to what can no longer be, and how to open yourself to the new possibilities that will emerge when you create energetic space in your life. The person will leave your life. It's on purpose. And when that happens, instead of resisting, take a deep breath and trust that something even more aligned with who you're becoming is on its way. Your Scorpio nature was made to rise from the ashes. Every significant departure is, in fact, a preparation for an even more powerful rebirth.